Alright guys, what's going on? Oink here, and we've got some brand new seasonal events as of today, because of course it is Thursday. So if you head into your seasonal events, you will find 450 PP mini challenge. Now, as the name suggests, this is a one-make race for minis only. You can have any of the minis, including of course the DLC 2011 minis, the Countryman and the Cooper S 2011. But we've got the Rome circuit, Iger Nordwand, Reverse, Deep Forest, Côte d'Azur, Monaco, whatever you want to call it, and an Eiffel Custom. Now, because not all of you will have the DLC, I haven't chosen any of those cars. I've gone with the Mini Cooper S 2007, which you can purchase from the premium dealership in the mini section, of course. Upgrades wise, I've taken the max sports tyres of max tyres of Sports Hard, I should say. Standard suspension. I've upgraded the clutch. I do have the fully custom transmission, but I actually left it stock. Got the turbo, exhaust, intake, and the sports ECU. No other engine or chassis upgrades. And we'll get straight into it. Now, I'm going to give a shout out to my main man, Gary Rudnick, for suggesting last week if I basically show a whole lap from each race, so you can actually go back and check each corner or check the whole lap. So what I've done is I've kind of patched together, you know, my best lap or the best corners from across the race into one whole lap. So that's what we're going to do. We'll just have one whole lap of each race. And it should be sort of generally my best lines that I took through that race, throughout the race. So that's how it's going to be. So thanks for the suggestion. If you prefer this way of doing it as opposed to just sort of random highlights, which is, to be honest, this probably is a much better way. The videos might end up being a little bit longer, but I think this is a good format. So thanks for the suggestion. Let's start off with saying that these are fairly easy for the most part. Most of the time I was taking into first place at around lap 3 out of 5 or 4 out of 5 early on, so to be honest it should be fairly simple for you. Again, I was at about 445 performance points out of a maximum of 450. I think you could probably win most of these around maybe 400 performance points if you're looking for a challenge or some extra credits and XP. Again, depends on your skill level, but I think maxed out at 450. This should be doable for everyone, you know, regardless of your ability. And you can see I take first in, what was it, start of lap 3 there, or start of lap 4, fairly early on in the race, and get the win there. So that's what I'll do. I'll show a whole lap, then I'll show a replay of where exactly I took first place, so you guys can compare, and then I'll finish up the race there. So we'll move on to Iger Nordwand. Now this is a reverse of the short trail, and again, like I said, with none of these, it's not too challenging. Because obviously this is an FF car, your drivetrain is on the front tyres, and if you accelerate too hard early on in the corner, you will find it understeers a heck of a lot. Also, one thing to note there, they're going to brake very early, and you can actually leave braking quite late because of the uphill climb that happens there. So you can leave the braking quite late and pass the AI. But just make sure that you're not hitting the accelerator too hard early on in the corner, otherwise you will understeer out wide. Just sort of go about 50% throttle through the corners, try and straighten up your wheels as early as possible and then get back on the throttle. Just don't get back on too early, like I said, otherwise you will find yourself understeering and coming out wide through most of these corners, and that can really go for most of these tracks. It's more noticeable on some more than others, but that's one thing just to note for all of these races. Just a bit of accelerator control, and yeah, I mean, a lot of people sort of skip over the FF cars because they're a little less interesting, and but yes, these minis are quite fun to drive. They're quite perky, and with all these upgrades, actually, they're not too slow either. So yeah, quite a good fun event, even if it was relatively easy. We'll move on to Deep Forest then. The car handles really nicely through here, actually. It doesn't understeer too much, and you can take most of the corners fairly quickly. You don't have to drop into second. You may be able to stand in third most of the race as a minimum. I mean, still bear in mind that you don't want to accelerate too much through some of the slightly slower corners, but on the whole this is a fairly fast-paced circuit. And it does suit the Mini nicely. As I said, it's got some nice smooth lines, and the FF cars are generally very easy to handle, and this one just really does sort of flow nicely through this track. as you can see, like through there, nearly sort of, 75-80% throttle throughout the corner, and just keeping it nicely, hitting the apexes, yeah, it's sort of quite a nice flow. Like I said, just watch out that you don't hit the wall, by the way, as you come up that hill. Just make sure you're tucking inside nicely, finishing wide, because clipping the walls there, and generally going wide on this track, for example, in places like that and going into the grass, it can really slow you down, especially if you're on an uphill section. And yeah, so there's the end of the lap for that one. Again, I'll show you here, and we'll take first place. So at the end of lap 2, I'm just taking those guys, and then at the very start of lap 4, I take first place. So a whole 2 laps to spare with that one. Again, very easily finished. We'll move on to Côte d'Azur or Monaco, or whatever you want to call it. Now, this is a trickier track. It's very technical and very narrow, so on the whole it's going to be slightly tougher. Passing is a little trickier on this course, just because, again, it's very narrow and the passing opportunities aren't at a premium, shall I say. So generally the difficulty for this track is going to be slightly higher than the others, but if you just maintain your speed, don't try and push yourself too hard, again, because it's not going to be impossible to reach first place. It's relatively easy, so just bear in mind that you don't need to be driving at sort of 100% the whole time here if you're not 100% comfortable with the track. Just like I said, keep it nice and steady, avoid hitting the walls, because they really do slow you down. And yeah, if you can just keep a sort of consistent lap speed, you should have no issue. My laps were really sloppy in this, I was hitting the walls and whatnot. I was just sort of, I don't know, I think I was distracted during this race, I don't know, just got a bit bored or something, so I wasn't really concentrating fully, and sneaked in through there in the little chicane. That was mighty close. But yeah, just like I said, avoid contact with the walls, because those will slow you down, and just go at the pace that you're comfortable with for the track, as long as you're not pushing yourself too fast in some kind of attempt to beat a world record or something. Like just nice and steady really does win the race in this one. Yeah, again, it shouldn't pose too much of a problem. You can see my lap times there are pretty damn slow. I think on this last lap where I didn't make too much bumps on the wall, I got like a 154, so I was going very slowly, and still, you see here, I'm taking first place at the very start of lap 4. So again, similarly to the last one, we've got 2 whole laps of plain sailing for another easy one. And we'll move on to our last track, which is a custom Eiffel track. And I'm not sure if this is a karting Eiffel one, because I think there is a karting variant for the Eiffel ones, but either way, it is a narrow course with grass on either side. Just take your first lap or 2 just to get used to the course. This is the only one that I actually restarted. All of the others I did on my first try, and I probably would have won this by a long way even if I hadn't restarted. I just sometimes, because obviously the first lap I was basically just playing by ear, I'd never driven on this track before, so I wouldn't know what was going to happen, and I basically just completely screwed up one corner because I didn't really know what was going to happen, and ended up off the course. And I was like, I don't know, when I go off the course and it's messy, I just kind of get upset with myself and just like rage restart sort of thing. I'm sure there are people who know exactly what I'm talking about. So this is the only one that I did that, and then the second try, it wasn't perfect, but I got the job done. Yeah, really, another one. We've got 8 laps on this, by the way. It's slightly shorter, sort of 58 to 56, roughly a minute per lap, so we've got 8 laps for that one. Anyway, there it is. Fairly easy seasonal event. I hope you guys enjoy this one. Hope this video has helped you. Let me know if this new format of doing a whole lap, for reference and that sort of thing is a better format. So, yeah, well, I'll catch you guys soon. Peace.